Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Still Curtain podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Jaggi, editor of StillCurtain.com. And joining me, as always, is Still Curtain contributor Shayne Kubas. We're going to talk NFL draft today. Shayne, the free agency wave has died down, at least for now. Still no sighting of Aaron Rodgers. We'll see when and if that might be happening here. But we're going to talk about the NFL draft and the pro days going on right now. We're going to dissect the Steelers pre-draft visit tracker, talk about all their 30 visits, Shayne, their pro day meetings so far, what that could mean for their draft direction. And we'll finish today's show by outlining our dream and nightmare scenarios for the Steelers in round one, Shayne.
Yeah, we're getting to that point where it's all about the draft. Free agency's mostly come and gone. Obviously, we still have some players out there that could potentially offer the Steelers something and other teams something, but the bulk of free agency, the big time moves have been made. It all comes down to what the draft is going to look like for all the teams, but obviously we'll be focusing on the Steelers as we do.
All right, and I love seeing the chat popping out early here with questions. Do you think Carnell Tate is a possibility? Not without a substantial trade up. It's not.
Yeah, probably not.
I think you may have to get as high as 6 even.
Yeah,
it's very unlikely, and I don't know necessarily if that would be the Steelers' ideal fit with what they're looking for. Tate's a really good.
He's awesome, but not necessarily what they've kind of filled a lot of the roles that he would normally fill. Like that's the issue with that. But again, that's partially because he's not one of the receivers that are probably going to be able to target if they want to or not. So.
Yeah, good question, though. And in this year, you can't rule anything out. Omar Khan's been really aggressive over his first 3.5 years as general manager. He made a trade up in 2023 into the first round. This year, the Steelers have 4 picks on day 2. So you can't rule them out going as high as, I don't know, moving up to pick 7, 8, 9, 10 in the draft. They have the firepower to make it happen. They're going to make some trades somewhere. I can't see them going into the draft with 12 picks.
No, I think whether it's during the draft, before the draft, whatever it may be, I think you're going to see at least a couple of those picks move around at least to some degree. Maybe you see them if they get into the third round and they don't like some of the players at some of their spots. Maybe they trade down actually and get picks for next year or something like that. Like you can see a lot of different moves coming from that range of the draft.
Absolutely. I see another question here too, but let's get to that in just a little bit here. Let's talk about some of the NFL news and we'll circle back to the draft here. Shayne, ESPN's Ben Solak, who I very much respect, I think is amazing at his job.
Very good stuff. Yeah.
Ranks the Steelers as the most improved roster in the NFL after the first wave of free agency. That's pretty high praise considering they didn't go out and land like a superstar or anything that way. But Solak, just an overview, just kind of loves everything the Steelers did from the vantage point of it didn't cost him that much. Jamel Dean, $12.2 million a year, and Michael Pittman, a late round pick swap to get a starting caliber receiver. He was a big fan of the Rico Dowdle move, who can be an RB1 in a pinch. And so I don't necessarily disagree. I think the Steelers had a really strong offseason. If the goal is to be competitive right now, Shayne, and I think we can argue from a philosophical standpoint that the window should probably be a few years from now instead of like the immediate present. Yeah. But the Steelers no doubt improved. And according to Solak, the most improved team.
I think this is an interesting question and an interesting thing to break down, because I think if you go off bang for your buck, sure, like the Steelers are definitely up there in terms of how much better they got for how much money they spent and general capital that they invested into this team. I think if you're going on who actually improved the most, you probably have to look at teams like the Panthers and the Titans in terms of actual improvement of the total talent on the roster. Now, they spent a lot of money to get there, and it might not be overall that much more improved if you look at it from the grand scheme of things. But if you're looking at it purely from how much better did each team get based on how much they actually had to spend to get there, Steelers definitely up there. That much I will definitely concur with.
Yeah, and I agree with how you just put that, Shayne. And so I think maybe what we can say is, how much did you improve in respect to how much you had to give up in the process
with
to do it? And so
the efficiency.
And I have no problem with Steelers being number one in that sense. And we'll see. I mean, they certainly got some starter caliber worthy players. I'm interested to see the dynamic between Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren. What's the split like over there? Is it close to a 50-50 split? I mean, Dowdle's a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher.
Probably
Sebastian Joseph Day, very underrated move in my opinion. Just a really solid rotational defensive tackle. So definitely like some of the things that they did there. Let's talk Jackson Smith and Jigba here for a second, Shane. Not Steelers related news, but man, oh man, did he just completely obliterate the wide receiver market this past week, topping Jamar Chase by nearly $2 million a year. I mean, we're talking 42 plus million per season, 42.15 in new annual earnings. Obviously, he did have the 5th-year option tacked onto that deal, but in terms of the new money, this is unprecedented stuff we just have not seen before. And kind of just to put it into perspective, Shane, CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, who I view as top 5 receivers in the NFL when they're firing and healthy, and when Jefferson has a quarterback, these guys are now being outpaced by like 8 million per season, just like that. And it happens so fast. We're talking about guys that got extensions in the 2024 offseason, 2 off seasons later. I mean, we're reaching uncharted territory with this. And Shane, further perspective, for the price that you can get a Jackson Smith and Jigba right now, you could basically get 2 Devontae Adams, 2 Nico Collins. I mean, Devontae just got paid last year. He's an older receiver, and that's why he didn't get as much. Right. Still a really good football player. Mm-hmm. But at what point are we reaching a breaking point here where it's going to be like, my wide receiver 1 is eating up X percentage of my team's total salary, and now we have to consider, do we start doing this? There's no question. You have to pay JSN. JSN is that good. I think he was a top 2 receiver. Him and probably Puka were the best receivers in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
But we're talking about loads and loads of money to the wide receiver position now.
It's really an interesting conversation because this is what people have been talking about with the quarterback position for a while, where, it wasn't that long ago that like 30 million was like a lot of money for a quarterback, like in the grand scheme of things, not that long ago. And now Dak's making 60 million. Who knows what the deals are going to look like in a couple of years. And I think ultimately what people have to remember with this, and I'm not saying that the receiver market isn't exploding a little bit, maybe more than it probably should, but this is all relative to the cap, right? If you look at how high the cap has risen versus how high the salaries have risen, it's generally in the same path. Like there's some outlier things, like the Linderbaum deal, for example, among centers is an outlier contract, but not really compared to what it could have been if this was a couple of years ago. It's still a lot of money at the end of the day. But I think at some point you're going to reach a point where the salary cap is increasing a little bit more even than the salaries are overall, not by a high percentage, because that's the whole point, is that it's not supposed to really, they're supposed to kind of correlate to each other. But it's not going to seem as bad when you start looking at it from the cap percentage perspective. That's what is really going to matter here when we're moving forward. Like if that's an outlier for a contract, that tells you something is kind of weird with it. And I don't think that's the case with JSN.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely important to note that the salary cap rises substantially each season. We've seen that, and so nothing to be surprised about. I mean, he's deserving of being the top of the market type of player after the season he just had. But I mean, it's that money is just improving. It's increasing so fast. And just to kind of compare it to some of the quarterbacks this year, he's making about 10 million more per season than his Super Bowl winning quarterback, Sam Darnold. He is making 2 million more per season than MVP Matthew Stafford. And so it leapfrogs all the time. And now he's next in line to get that record setting deal. Shane, let's talk about Pittsburgh's brass reportedly being in attendance at Ohio State's pro day today as we record this show. There's kind of been some mixed reports out there. Nick Farbaugh said, full transparency, we don't see Khan and McCarthy out here. And so we'll keep an eye on that.
It might just be Andy Weidel there.
Weidel for sure, Farbaugh said. And we will see what else comes of this. But as of now, we'll go ahead and assume that's the report from, who was that said this here?
Yeah, I forget exactly.
Was it Benjamin Albright? No, it was.
No. I believe it.
We'll find it here for you. But it's
Albert Breer is who reported.
Albert Breer. So we'll assume that they are there as initially reported until proven otherwise here, and we'll see how that impacts kind of where the Steelers are aiming in the NFL draft here. Not surprising to see them at Ohio State's pro day. Obviously, cream of the crop talent, the best NFL talent pool this year, Ohio State. But Shane, the big thing here, Ty Simpson is not at that school. He's at Alabama's pro day. It's going on at the same time, so is offensive tackle Caden Proctor. But Ty Simpson's the big one. If you miss out on that, it's absolutely critical that you have a 30 visit with him, which I assume that they will.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're not there in potentially a quarterback needy year could be a sign that maybe they're not leaning that direction, Shayne.
And boy, I sure hope so. I do not want to have we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but I do not need to be a part of the Ty Simpson discourse that's currently going on in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't want to be involved in that if I don't have to. But in general, I think there's so much talent at Ohio State this year, and it's not just the very top guys. There are other guys down the board that are interesting, guys that are still first-round caliber players. You look at like a Caden McDonald type of guy. Like, there are reasons to be there beyond just even the very top players, because realistically, the very top players probably not, unless, maybe a Caleb Downs, if he falls far enough or something like that, he might be in range. But for the most part, a lot of those guys probably are going to be there when the Steelers pick. But it's still probably a good idea to be there at that pro day if you can be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Davison, Igbinosun, and other guys that you could target right there on day 2.
Yeah.
And it's close by. The Steelers have always done it with Tomlin and Colbert, Tomlin and Kahn. And so nothing surprising here. But those are 2 massive pro days going on at the same time. Yeah. We'll see if it impacts anything. And Shayne, you get 30 of these pre-draft visits, the non-local pre-draft visits. You would assume that Simpson will be brought in with one of them. Maybe even Caden Proctor will be brought in with another. Offensive line certainly isn't out of the question, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do, you are tuned into the Steel Curtain podcast, where Steelers fans come to talk, celebrate, and debate. For more coverage, hit up steelcurtain.com, powered by the passionate fans at Fansided. Shayne, I did have a mock draft that just dropped this morning with Ty Simpson as the top pick. I've gone back and forth. I still think that wide receiver is at the top of the dock for Pittsburgh, but I can see a scenario now that you've covered all of your bases and you can say, okay, we went out and at least found a stopgap starter in Pittman. We found a quality starting cornerback in Jamel Dean, who should at least be here for 2 of the next 3 seasons, even if he doesn't play out his full contract. The running back position is well secure with Rico Dowdle there, pairing with Jalen Warren. I think he actually got better there. You found a quality rotational defensive tackle in Sebastian Joseph Day. You don't necessarily have to go anywhere. You found Brock Hoffman, who I think has been very underrated for Dallas these past 3 years as a fill-in interior offensive lineman, both at guard center. They're not like strapped to go in a particular direction. And maybe because of that, maybe they could take their quarterback swing now. You and I would agree that that's probably not the best decision, considering what should be coming up in next year's quarterback class and just our overall feel for Ty Simpson at this stage. I'm not the biggest fan. I think there's a lot of risk there when you're talking about a player who has 1 year of starting experience and the year went down as the season went on. And sure, he dealt with some injuries, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am right now, Shayne, and I know that you kind of share that opinion.
Yeah, with Simpson, it just comes down to the fact that I'm not a fan of taking guys who would be outliers in terms of their physical traits in the first round, generally speaking. Like, they have to have something absolutely special about them. And a guy like Simpson, who is undersized for the position, even though I understand like there's smaller guys that are working now and it's becoming less of an issue, he's small in a way that doesn't really benefit him. I don't think he's this uber athletic guy that because he's that small, he can move around a ton. Not that he can't, scramble and do all that stuff, but he's not a Kyler Murray. He's not that type of athlete, right? And he just doesn't have a plus arm. Like, I think the arm is good on his best day, but he kind of strains as a thrower. I don't think he's a very natural thrower of the football in that way, where it just comes off his hand great. He just doesn't have enough of the physical traits to overcome his size limitations and his inexperience. Like, this is a guy you take a chance on day 2, in my opinion, and you see if he can develop into a starter. But you don't take this type of profile in the first round generally. I just don't think you should, at least.
Yeah, he's not going to be a first-round grade for me. I don't think he should actually be a first-round graded player. Yes, there are 32 first-round picks. There's only set amount of first-round grades, maybe 12 to 16 first-round, actual first-round grades when you grade year over year off of the talent. Shayne, you talked about him falling short in that area. He's not a box checker. In fact, if you compare him to a quarterback like Jackson Dart last year, I think Dart actually checked way more boxes. 3 years.
Physical trait, at least, especially.
Yes, 3 years of starting experience in the SEC compared to 1 for one compared to for Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart was 6'2 plus, 220 plus. Simpson misses both of those thresholds at 6'1" and 211 pounds soaking wet at the combine. And the reports that played much smaller than that. Yeah, 205 playing weight. And then you talked about just the kind of pretty modest tools overall. I'm with you. If you're not reaching for the upside with a raw guy, then I wouldn't take a raw guy in the first round if you're not getting all the potential benefits that could come with it if he hits. But that's where we are right now with Simpson. Enough rambling about that, Shayne. Let's get to my pre-draft interest tracker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't take full credit from this because, again, this is what I'm seeing all out there on social media, articles, whatever it is. All the visits that have been reported by the Steelers from various sources, all of the pro day meetings, which there haven't been many, and we'll talk about that too. And then going back to the combine, Shayne, and who the Steelers formally met with at the combine, as was reported according to all the sources on X. And so I did do a little bit of swapping here with my categories. If you can't see this, you're listening to audio at home. We have our pre-draft visit tracker up on the screen here. We're going to talk about it and dissect it a little bit right now. The 30 visits, Shayne, I think this is the biggest difference between the Colbert era and the Kahn era in terms of the pre-draft process. The 30 visits mean more. At least they have so far in the first 3 drafts of Kahn and Weidl as compared to Colbert. So I'm doing the double check mark for the 30 visits. I've moved them into the leftist most column here. And pro days, I'm putting the single check mark on, and we're going to kind of go down through these names, and we don't have nearly the list of 30 complete yet, the 30 visits complete yet, Shayne, but we'll talk about what we know so far. And starting in the first round, Denzel Boston is the guy that's checking the boxes. He has the reported, will be coming for that reported 30 visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers, also had a formal combine meeting. That means he's already checking 2 of the 3 boxes. Only thing he didn't get was the pro day. Don't need it necessarily. You need the pro day or the 30 visit, and the 30 visit has proved more predictive for the Kahn and Weidl era. And so he's at the top of the list, Shayne, followed by some pro day meetings. Carnell Tate, the Ohio State wide receiver, that's today. Andy Weidl at least being on hand, and we think the rest of Steelers brass is as well. Caden McDonald, the Ohio State defensive tackle. Caleb Downs, at least in play, probably long gone, but you never know with the Steelers having this much capital if they'd be willing to trade up 6-8 spots in the draft for a particular player. They haven't traded up for a safety since Troy Polamalu, but it worked out pretty well last time they did. CJ Allen, the Georgia linebacker, in play with Steelers being at Georgia's pro day. Monroe Freeling, same way. And then we have a slew of wide receivers after that were formal combine meetings. And then also worth noting that Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, 2 players who the Steelers brass was on hand for the pro day, but are expected to be very, very long gone by the time the Steelers are on the clock, Shayne.
Yeah, I think realistically, when you're looking at the first round candidates right now, it's very incomplete. Like, we're going to get a lot more 30 visit announcements for a lot of those guys, I assume.
For sure.
Like, there's going to be guys whose pro day haven't happened yet, and they're going to go to that pro day, I'm sure, at least send someone to that pro day to get a look at them, especially looking at guys like Tyson, Cooper Jr., Concepcion, probably Simpson on the 30 visit, like you said. Those guys are all going to probably be have that check mark in their column at some point. We just haven't gotten that information yet. And once we do, that will start to fall in place more. Because as much as I think Boston is a guy that's going to be in the running potentially, I would have said that more likely a month ago when we didn't add Michael Pittman, who might be a good comp for Denzel Boston in a lot of ways. So like that to me makes me think that they're probably not as likely to draft him realistically. But someone in that row that we're looking at right now is probably going to be the pick if we're being honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly can't rule him out. And even after getting Pittman, having that reported 30 visit on the dock with Boston puts him firmly on the map. I mean, he's a guy that's expected to at least be there at that spot. We think that the Steelers are leaning wide receiver in round 1. I think that's kind of where the tea leaves have been pointing so far. Shayne, I would say the biggest difference so far between and again, we're very, very early into the Khan/Mike McCarthy era, just a few months into that now.
Mm-hmm.
They are hardly hitting the road like Khan and Tomlin did, or like Tomlin and Colbert did. It's not the same level of that. I remember going back to like the 2022 draft, Shayne, where Steelers made it so obvious they wanted a quarterback, and they took every single stop along the way to meet with all these guys. It's not the same right now. So far, there have only been 2 pro days out of all the dozens of pro days that have happened so far that the Pittsburgh brass has been a part of, and that is Ohio State and Georgia. Those are the only ones that we know of where their top dogs have been on hand to scope out the talent. And so that suggests that we're entering some uncharted territory here. We're not going to be able to weigh those pro day meetings maybe as heavily unless they go and unless they're going and drafting a player from Georgia or Ohio State, which they could do. But we may not be able to weigh those as heavily as we have in the past. And I think it's going to put more weight on the 30 visits than ever. That's kind of where we are right now.
I agree. And I think this is a trend that's actually, and I forget who, I wish I remembered who it was that said this because I want to get credit, but someone in NFL media mentioned recently that they think that there's a trend going on of GMs not going to pro days as much and not being on the road as much and letting their area scouts and their other, high ranking people do that stuff for them instead, because they've been the ones doing the work for the most part, right? So letting them be the ones like, okay, you've been doing all this work. It really should be you going out there and like confirming priors, checking stuff, talking with these guys. Like that seems to be a trend that's going on. And I think maybe the Steelers are part of that at this point, potentially.
Yeah. And quite frankly, Shayne, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind.
I think it makes sense.
Them staying. Yes. If they're staying back and they're watching film and they're studying these guys from Pittsburgh, like, I'm totally cool with that. I think that's probably what they should be doing anyway. I think that Tomlin was far too involved in the draft process. Personally, I think that it probably swayed the opinion of the front office in some ways. I mean, we knew how much he loved Najee Harris and select players over the years. And his fingerprints were on the draft. Let's just put it that way. And I think that a head coach's job is hard enough in itself. I'm okay with Mike McCarthy not being that involved. I want the front office to do what they were paid to do, and that's Andy Weidel. You construct the draft board. That's why they brought him over from Philadelphia, and as Howie Roseman's right-hand man, that's what I want. Like, let's draft well. You get 2 or 3 good drafts in a row. That's what Seattle did. That's how Seattle got into Super Bowl form, because they had like 3 killer drafts in a row, and they got their team good really fast, and they hired a good coaching staff as well. So let's hope Steelers did too.
That'll help. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the second round candidates here on the pre-draft interest tracker. Jeremy Bernard, right at the top of the list here, Shayne. They had a formal combine meeting with him, and this was eventually followed by a 30 visit with Bernard, the Alabama wide receiver. I've watched Bernard. I'm not the biggest fan of his game. It kind of feels like, in the best way possible, he is a kind of good at everything, great at nothing type of receiver, just a well-rounded guy. Nothing wrong with that. I think projects as a wide receiver 3 and maybe a low-end wide receiver 2 in the NFL. Shayne, do you share a different opinion on Bernard?
No, so I had a midday 2 grade on Bernard whenever I watched him like a couple months ago now. I think he's one of those players to me, that receiver that you're going to look up in 9 years and he's playing still and he's been good, but he's never been like the best receiver on his team. He's never probably going to be like especially a consistent 1,000-yard guy, but maybe not even a 800-900-yard guy. But he's going to make your football team better. And I feel like in the second round at 53, it's a little bit rich for me personally, but not that much. Like if he was the second round receiver, they went somewhere else in the first round, especially because I think he could work from the slot pretty well, because he is pretty crafty, and I think he's very tough and can do the run after catch stuff and all that good stuff. It would work. I think I have other receivers that might be in that range that I would prefer if they wait till then to take a receiver, though. But it wouldn't be that bad of a pick, in my opinion. It just comes down to kind of what they look for in the slot type guy.
Yeah, if he's sitting there in round 2 still, I think you can argue that would be like an on-value selection. Roughly, I think like at his best, at his absolute best in the NFL, I mean, he might be like a Robert Woods type or something like that.
Hey, that was pretty good. If you're not, if you're not looking at Robert Woods with the Steelers,
not Steelers Robert Woods.
Right.
This is like the high end comp for him, probably.
Yeah.
Just in terms of play style.
Yeah.
Other names on here, Shayne, Zachariah Branch was reportedly, multiple sources said that he had a pro day dinner meeting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a kind of a polarizing prospect because his average depth of target is so close to the line of scrimmage, but he is monstrous with the ball in his hands. Like, he is electrifying. Like, if you only look at like highlights of Branch on the move with the ball in his hands, you could mistake that guy for Tyreek Hill. It's just the stuff that he does before the catch. Can he run routes, or was he just not asked to because he was so stinking good after the catch?
This is such a tough one for me because I generally don't like players like this. I really don't.
Yes.
Because like it's so hit or miss, right? It's just really hard to know if they're going to be able to play at the NFL level as an actual receiver, or and ultimately with him, like I want to watch more of him because I didn't watch a ton of him initially when I started my receiver watch, but he just, to me, he feels like a guy he's either going to be really, really explosive and really be a big part of an offense, or he's going to be Malachi Corley. Like, and I hate to do that to a guy because that's not a great comp to hear from anyone, but it just feels like that, right? Like, he just didn't do a lot of actual receiver stuff. That doesn't mean he can't do it, but how are we really supposed to know for sure without the sample size required to do so? So some team is going to take a chance on him in the second or third round, I feel like. And unfortunately, depending on who that team is, will probably determine whether he's good or not.
Well, Shayne, based on the tracker, it's going to be the Steelers right there.
Might be.
Round two if they don't get
if he goes to Steelers, I will say who would be a better fit for Aaron Rodgers at quarterback than a guy who doesn't catch the ball past 2 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Hey, there you go.
So he would probably have a really good rookie year. Maybe that would be it.
Yeah. Let's not draft around Rodgers, though. Let's not do that.
Well, I wouldn't, but they might.
43 season.
They might do it.
No, I mean, I get the Malachi Corley similarities in terms of play style.
Yeah, concerns.
I think the biggest difference, though, Shayne, is we're talking Western Kentucky compared to Georgia,
right?
And then the difference between the two is pretty substantial. Now, he's a small guy; he's not big. I think he came in at 5'8.5", 177. Like, he's small.
Wandell Robinson size,
I think.
Guy, so.
And yes, and maybe Wandell, if he can run routes.
I mean, Wandell just got $78 million, so maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know.
He's a better athlete, I think.
I think he is,
I do think that a lot of Steelers fans maybe are going to have a little bit of a sour taste in their mouth for these really small receivers because Calvin Austin really didn't turn out as advertised. He was more of a deep threat that couldn't win deep consistently because he was too small. And it's hard to rely on guys once you get, and this is why teams have thresholds at the position, right? Like, if you're 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", you're going to be at a disadvantage somehow, unless your name is Tyreek Hill. Like, you're just going to. And so in the best case scenario, you hope that this guy could be a Zay Flowers type of receiver in the NFL, but I think that requires a lot of natural ability to pull that off too. Another name, Shayne, here, I know we're getting stuck on kind of these round 2 candidates, but let's talk about the guys the Steelers have shown interest in. Another 30 visit, Jacob Rodriguez. I freaking love this guy. Like, he's such a good linebacker prospect. 2 things I don't like. I'll get these out of the way first. Rodriguez is 23 and a half years old. I think he turns 24 during his rookie season. So he is an older prospect, very much like Peyton Wilson coming out in terms of that. But he's also so splashy, though, too. Also had the foot injury. I think it was in 2023. Had a season-ending foot injury. And so a couple things worth noting there. But I think if not for those things, he's maybe the top. He doesn't go over Styles because of the traits, but he goes over C.J. Allen for sure. I'm probably going to have him over C.J. Allen.
So I'll actually tell you right now, because I just did my linebacker rankings this week and did my show for them that I do for my draft show. Right now, Jacob Rodriguez is linebacker 3 for me, behind only Styles and Reese if he played linebacker, because I decided to do it that way. So he would be technically my number 2 pure linebacker in the class because, and with a late first, early second round grade, I think a player like this, there's 2 names that came up to me when I was looking at, like, who do I think this guy could potentially be like? And obviously the age thing factors in and all that good stuff, but in terms of just like, who do I see when I watch him, the first name that came up, and I think he's a little bit smaller overall and like not as long as this player and probably not quite as much juice, even though he tested similarly. Blake Cashman of the Vikings is someone who I came up with that kind of feels similar to me. in a lot of ways, like
Okay.
a guy who can make plays on the ball, is really athletic, will run around, chase guys down as a run defender. And then this is more of the like high end comp, at least for like his peak, Darius Leonard. He like in terms of the ball production and forcing fumbles and there's like all this, like no one was doing it like Darius Leonard was for a couple of years there. And if you can get either of those players at the back end of the first or the second round, which is where I have him ranked, I'll do that every day of the week. And where he's probably going to be picked potentially, which could be where the Steelers are picking, absolutely. He would, to me, like day one, unless Peyton Wilson takes a step, would be the best linebacker on the team from day one if they took him in the second round.
Yeah, the potential is there. He checked the boxes athletically. The production is A+, outstanding. Splash playability. Shayne, I think that if this guy hits in the NFL, and I mean he really, really hits, and injuries aren't a concern or anything that way, he's got some Matt Milano, Sean Lee potential in terms of the splash play ability. So, and I think again, if anybody in any of these 32 teams wanted to take a shot on Rodriguez over CJ Allen, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think Allen is a little bit more one-dimensional as the downhill linebacker. I still think he's a really good player, team captain, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It can be beneficial for your football team, but Rodriguez, I would be ecstatic about that in round 2. I don't think he makes it that far. This very much feels like a guy to me, Shayne, that should fall like early 30s.
Yeah, that's where I would like be looking to take him if I could. Now, could I see a team taking him at the back end of the first round if they really need a linebacker? Which I don't know if that's really the case for the guys the back end of the first round. Yes, but I do think he's trending towards being a like somewhere between pick 33 and 45, something like that.
Yeah, I would agree. Chris Johnson's another one, Shayne, another name that I'm really intrigued by. Cornerback, toolsy, young. I mean, I think he just turned 21 years old. This is a pick that would excite me in the second round. I still, again, we know the premium on cornerbacks in the NFL draft. I have a feeling he goes much higher than this. I wouldn't be shocked if he like snuck into like the back half of the first round, but I think he's probably going to be like a top half of the second round type of player.
That's what I've heard with him. I haven't watched him yet personally. I'm starting corners this week, so I'll have more thoughts on the corner class, by the time we do our next show. But I think from what I've heard of him, he does profile as a guy that probably goes earlier than where we're picking in the second round. But the fact they're interested in him tells me that they at least acknowledge that as much as the corner room currently, like as it stands, is good, I think it's not going to stay that way for very long if they don't add some young talent to it.
Shayne, let's move over to the second, third round candidates over here. Keelan Rutledge, a guy that absolutely looks the part. I thought he had a pretty solid Senior Bowl too, but he looks like he was just made to be a starting caliber guard in the NFL. Steelers had a 30 visit with him. That one would get me interested as well, especially if you can get him at like pick 76. Like I think that if you're able to wait until the third round to get that guy, which I kind of think he'll be gone at that point. He might be the third best guard in this class. We got Vega, we got Pregnon, and then I would
have because I haven't updated it because I watched him after my rankings, but I have, so this is kind of cheating obviously, but like if Maui Noah was a guard, I'd have him behind Vega just
for sure, and Spencer Fano as well.
Right, those guys make it confusing. Like if you're talking pure guards, I would have Ioane, Pregnon, Basantis ahead of him for sure, and then I'd probably start to think about him like he'd be ahead of Dunker for me probably too. So yeah, he's one of those guys that like he rocks for sure. Like he's just like you love guys like this for sure. So I would be a fan of it in like the third round.
Moving over to our day 3 prospects here, Shayne. The Steelers have shown immense.
I mean, they got a lot of picks in this range, so
they do. What I'm kind of surprised by though is at least of the reported early 30 visits, the vast majority of them have been with these like 3rd through 5th round type of prospects. They haven't been with the early round guys. Now, maybe they're saving those until closer to the draft. I would assume that we'd see a bunch of these guys show up like true first round prospects showing up with those 30 visits. But right now, the majority of them are these 3rd through 5th round guys. Carson Beck, Cole Payton, a pair of quarterbacks there. Harold Perkins. This is such a polarizing figure because if you would have said this like 3 years ago, I'd be like, no, Steelers don't even have a chance to draft that guy. And now we're looking at him as like a day 3 pick. Markel Bell, the absolutely mammoth offensive tackle from Miami. Both of the 6'3+ Washington corners, Takario Davis and Ephesians Prysock. The Kentucky wide receiver, Kendrick Law. Jeff Caldwell, who is the Cincinnati receiver who has maybe
tested
the
like Calvin Johnson, does not exactly play like Calvin Johnson.
Not at all. Not extraordinarily raw with only one notable year of experience and was at an unnameable school the 3 years before that.
Right.
6'5", 216 and runs a 4.31. It's kind of an unreal package there.
Yeah.
If you're to take a late round flyer, Micah Morris, who's a big guard from Georgia, good athlete. And then James Thompson Jr., who I have not watched yet, but I don't love some of the things about his profile. The fact that he played 6 years in college, had zero production, and is 6'6" with 32-inch arms. Not my favorite type of build. Isaiah Loudermilky.
Yeah, don't love that. I will say, so the quarterbacks, right? Like the Beck and Peyton of it all. Beck to me is one of those guys where even though he ranks on my quarterback rankings, like not all the way at the bottom, I can't do it with him because he just doesn't. The couple things he was maybe good at Georgia aren't really there anymore because his arm is not as good at this point after the injury he had, and he just he just doesn't really do it for me. Cole Payton though, admittedly, now this is I'm gonna preface what I'm about to say with the fact that it's based mostly on potential and the fact that this is not a good quarterback class, but he would be the third quarterback off the board for me if I was drafting quarterbacks. Does that mean a whole lot of anything? Not really. Just going to be honest with you. He's still a guy I would not want to take until probably the back end of the third round as a flyer. But like, it's technically, hey, QB3 for me is one of the guys they're interested in. The two guys I want to talk about here because I've watched some of one of them and the other one I've watched fully. Harold Perkins. I don't know exactly what he's going to play in the NFL. I might just say defense, and you figure it out from there. But he is an awesome athlete. Someone will figure out something to try to do with him. Not sure if it's going to actually work out or he's going to play an actual like full-on position. But if nothing else, he's probably going to be really good on special teams, you'd hope. Because like that guy running down on kicks would be pretty awesome. Ran a 4.38 at his pro day. And Markel Bell is the one I want to take a second on because now I'm also going to say like I don't want to be accused of being Dan Orlovsky right now and say something ridiculous about the draft. But I do legitimately mean what I'm about to say. Right now, in terms of pure like tackles and guys that I think like if you're playing tackle fully, like not a potential guard convert, none of that stuff. So like take Maui Noa out of it and Lomu or not Lomu. Lomu I do think is a pure tackle actually personally, or not Lomu Fano. I mean,
yeah.
Right now, Markel Bell would be my second tackle in the class.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it's a combination of two things. One, you can't teach 6'9", 346 pounds, right? And there is a level of like that might not be good at a certain point. But the more I watched of him, I just kind of felt like he doesn't have like he's not such a poor athlete, and he tested okay at the combine and all. Really, to be honest, like the 5.36 looks bad, but again, he's 6'9", 500.
Yeah.
Like that's not a bad time for that size. Tested better than guys like Orlando Brown Jr. who's stuck around for a long time, and Trent Brown, and like. I think he fits more of that mold, though, of a guy who legitimately, despite his size, is a good enough athlete at that size and his unbelievable just reach and ability to just keep guys away from this quarterback. He's such a high floor player to me. Like in a tackle class that I don't love a lot of the guys because I think they're either projects or they might be guards and all this other stuff. I just kept pushing him up until it got to a point where I'm like, if I'm the back end of the first round and I need to just take somebody who I'm confident is going to keep my quarterback from dying, he's probably the guy I'd take after Loma or after Fano.
You can't go through him. I mean, that's
for
sure.
It's impossible.
There is something like you can say that like edge rusher, certain positions, we're finding that the length doesn't matter that much. You can win with short arms and just average size length. It matters for offensive tackles, and it just makes it that much harder to get around you. So does just the sheer mass of him as well. And what's interesting, Shayne, is that maybe the Steelers are looking to go in a bit of a different direction with their offensive line. Now, they're still technically a wide zone team with Mike McCarthy, but what do we know that McCarthy has liked to do over the years in Dallas and Green Bay? He's liked to operate out of shotgun and kind of just have pocket passers who can go through progressions. And what better way to do that than get guys that can create a U-shaped pocket that doesn't cave in? And I think that Markel Bell fits the bill in that way. And I think that's his best trait is he's not going to be great getting to the second level. That's just not his thing.
No,
he's going to be the pass protector. So I wonder if they're looking for maybe kind of a paradigm shift here with the offensive line and start getting a little bit heavier, start getting a little bit more anchoring ability and pass protection ability. And so maybe they would be willing to shake it up a little bit there. Yeah. Going back to the quarterbacks, 100% agree with what you said on Cole Payton. It's a bad quarterback class in general. I feel like 95% confident that like Garrett Nussmeier is going to be better than him. But if I was drafting, I still think I would just say, but I'm going to swing for the fences. Yeah, and if I miss, then I miss. Yeah, because I don't want to. I really think that Carson Beck, Nussmeier, Altmaier, like you're getting backup quarterback. Klubnik, you're getting backup quarterbacks with all those guys. So give me the guy that at least has starter traits, and we'll see if it works out. Probably won't, but we'll see if it does. And then go into Harold Perkins. Just again, I don't know what to do with this guy because in his freshman and junior seasons at 18 or freshman and sophomore season at 18, 19 years old, he was absolutely remarkable and talked about as a future top 5 pick. Has the ACL tear 4 games into his junior season. Didn't play as well last year while dealing with a hip injury. Obviously very undersized for the position. 8 and an 1/8 inch hands, 0 percentile among linebackers and edge rushers. Like those are baby hands. I mean, you talk about Kenny Pickett, small hands. Those are small hands. I think it does matter in certain positions when you're going to be a pass rusher. You have to be able to manipulate the point of attack. By the way, like TJ Watt has 11 inch hands. So that's quite the difference.
Yeah. I mean, he's also ridiculous. So
I do think that his best position in terms of how he plays would be rushing the passer, but can you do it when you're that small? Now I will say caveat here, Nick Herbig played at Wisconsin at 6'2", 227 was his listed size. Now, he got up to 240 pounds for the NFL Combine. I don't think he played that heavy, and I don't know how much weight you can put on Perkins, but at least if you go by Herbig's Combine listed size, pretty similar in that regard, 6'1", 223 compared to 6'2", 227. Again, major outlier traits here for the position. It's why you're going to get him in a very discounted rate, whatever team is drafting Harold Perkins. But if there's a team that can make it work, maybe it's the Steelers. He has a longer wingspan than Herbig and Highsmith.
He's so weird. This is what it comes to. Like, he's 6'1", 220 pounds, and the best thing he's done at the college level was rush the passer, like you said. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea,
26 TFLs though in his first 2 seasons is awesome.
But this is going off PFF, so take it or leave it, whatever. For those who care about that, he has in 450 roughly 449 pass rush snaps in his career. He has 19 sacks and 88 pressures. Yeah. That is an insane level of production as a pass rusher. But he doesn't actually he doesn't do it in a way that like you can actually do in the NFL consistently. But it is just funny to say that he has that much production in really 3 years of playing, because it was really 3 years for the most part. There was 1 year he didn't really play much. Like it's really hard to ignore, but it's also like, how does it translate? Because the only guy that I can think of who sort of played a role that maybe could fit this is that one weird Jamal Adams Seahawks year, where he was like their best pass rusher for some reason for a minute. Like that would be the only type of role that I could see him fitting in. And so it's going to take a creative defensive coordinator to get him on the field for defense. But again, I think at the end of the day, like worst case scenario, if you draft him really late, like if no one has any interest in him as a defender, like he's going to be a really good special teamer, you think. But I just, he's so strange though. I don't know what to do with him.
Yeah, Shayne, oddly enough, on Stacking the Box podcast just recently, I compared him to late career Jamal Adams. Maybe that's the role that he needs to play. He's just so undersized. I don't know what you do with him. But, I mean, we're talking about former number 1 linebacker recruit in the nation, former number 1 recruit at Texas, former number 5 overall recruit in the nation in his coming out into college. I think that somebody is going to be pleasantly surprised by what they get in this player. He was just too good to make me think not. And it just so many parallels with Herbig in college, where it's like, this guy's undersized. We know he's not going to be drafted high. We're not even looking at him as a top prospect, and only to be drafted in the 4th round and then go on to impress everybody. And now he's on the cusp of earning a massive second contract. And so again, do I think he's going to follow exactly in that Herbig route? Probably not. There's so many outlierish traits going against him right now. And a pretty severe knee injury on top of that just 2 years ago. But I think he's very, very intriguing for sure, especially if you can get him like early day 3, which I think that there's a chance that he falls into that range. Anybody else you want to talk about here, Shayne, before we move on?
I mean, as far as the guys that have gotten the 30 visits and a lot of interest, not really. I think that we kind of touched on a lot of those guys. Kind of hoping, I hate to say this because like technically if you're going off of like potential, it would make sense. I don't want to see a 30 visit next to Drew Eller's name. I don't want to see that. We don't need to do this. But yeah, I think we're good there.
Yeah, I would assume that we will see a lot of these flood in the next couple of weeks of the first and second round candidates, because again, there's only 4 guys of the true first, second round candidates that have had the 30 visits so far. I think that they're going to, I mean, I would assume they'd have visits with Jordan Tyson and Makai Lemon and all those
guys. Yeah, you'd imagine. Yeah.
So far, nothing though. We will see, and we will keep you updated with that. All right, Shayne, we're going to move on, talk about our dream and nightmare scenarios. Before we do, if you are a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and would like to support the Steel Curtain podcast, please consider subscribing to the Steel Curtain podcast on YouTube. We appreciate your support. Check out our written work on steelcurtain.com. All right. If you are joining us in the chat here, please drop your questions for us. We'd love to be able to answer those. And we'll get to this one now that we ignored here for a little bit as we were doing that. So with the Steelers, go with someone like Lemon. And I think they would absolutely love Lemon in terms of the play style, as long as there's no personality concerns. I know that that's going to be something that they're going to weigh with George Pickens and everything that way. And
worried about his
some people reporting is a little bit quirky or whatever. I don't know. That's the stuff that's the one thing that we can't speak on unless we do hear like insider information. This happened or a certain team said this about him. In terms of the talent, absolutely. Who would not be interested in Makai Lemon? I think that he is today's NFL receiver. He wins before the catch. He wins after the catch. He's tough as nails. 3.13 yards per route run. Just spectacular stuff. What he was able to do this past season. He's 21 years old. I would be all over that, and I would be over that for a trade up as well. If it cost me a first and one of my thirds to go secure Makai Lemon, I think that would be a worthwhile investment. I just think that he could be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL.
I think specifically, especially for a team like the Steelers, who have pretty much everything else at receiver right now, other than what Makai Lemon brings you, it would be a great fit, and it's specifically a dream fit. We're probably about to talk about him in a second because of what we're ending the show on. In terms of dream scenarios here, right? So he would be awesome. Yes, he would be a great fit for what they're trying to do.
All right, Shayne. So let's get to that then. Let's start with our dream scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers in round 1, Shayne. And I can kind of start things off here and then give you a chance to get yours ready. But
gotcha.
My dream for Pittsburgh would be that you can stay at pick 21 and land Jordan Tyson. And I don't think that this is like a pipe dream or anything that way. I do think that Tyson could go as early as pick 6 or 8, depending on which teams. We know some of the teams that have brought him in for visits so far. Yeah. Even the Tennessee Titans have. They own the 4th pick. The Browns have. They own the 6th pick. The Saints have. They own the 8th pick. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in that 6, 8 to 10 range right there. He's talented enough to do so. Mel Kiper Jr. just the other day said that he is a top 5 or 6 talent in this class. I tend to agree with him, if not for the injury stuff. And that's the big if not for. And there's a saying, Shayne, around the NFL that injured guys tend to stay injured. I would be concerned about that. He had a major knee injury in 2023, came back with a really good season in 2024, and then dealt with a hamstring injury a lot in 2025, still dealing with it right now. He's not going to do testing at his workout on April 17th. Having said all that, I just think that the talent is way too good to pass up. I think that you are looking at a guy who truly profiles as a wide receiver 1, 6'2" and an 1/8 and 203 pounds, and just so hip fluid for a guy that is that big, can snap in and out of his breaks, good at the catch point. I really, really like his game a lot. I think it wins in the NFL. I think you can play him as the big slot, a la CeeDee Lamb for Mike McCarthy's offense, his version of CeeDee Lamb, at least. Not that level of prospect, but still really good. And if you can get him at 21 because of the injury stuff and teams shy away or they choose to go a different direction, sign me up for that 10 times out of 10. I will take the injury gamble. The Steelers have gambled on guys with injuries. Peyton Wilson, Darnell Washington, Troy Fautanu, questions about his knee. For the most part, outside of the Corey Trice, who just can't stay on the field, for the most part, these injury gambles have paid dividends for them so far. And I think that these guys are trending in the right direction. Get me a guy that's more talented than any of those guys.
Yeah, I do like Tyson a lot. So I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be okay with it, but I would say I wouldn't go as far to say for me it's a dream scenario, because I would not want to be the team to take a chance on him if I could avoid it.
I get that.
And the reason I say that is because I think there's other receivers in this class. Like if I knew a full clean bill of health for all these guys, I still probably would have Tate at receiver 1 personally. I just love what he brings as that true, like, dominant X receiver, because there's just not that many of them in the NFL anymore. Where, like, I think he is that type of player where he can be that true X receiver for you. Not that Tyson couldn't do that to some degree as well, but between his ball skills, and I think he has a little bit of untapped potential after the catch, even that I've seen a couple of flashes of. But even then, like, he'd probably be receiver 2 for me then. I think the difference between him and Lemon and Casey Concepcion, who I am very high on, and even an Omar Cooper Jr., a little bit less or so, but still, isn't big enough to take that big of a gamble with a guy who legitimately just seems to kind of be banged up all the time. And it'd be one thing if he had one major injury and, like, that was it. And, like, otherwise he was really healthy. But he just feels like a guy that's banged up all the time. And I can't really quite get there with it if I'm taking a receiver there in the first round. Now, if he's the best one left by a good bit and all the other guys have been pushed up because of his injuries, then yeah, because then you're just taking a gamble on a guy that could be your receiver 1 for you, and there's no other guys comparable. But if there's a Concepcion or Omar Cooper Jr., someone like that on the board there, I would feel better about doing that personally.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that at all, Shane. And you talk about Carnell Tate, I think one of the highest floor players in this class. I think that his floor is to be maybe a T. Higgins type of player, Nico Collins type of player. Like, I think he's that good where he's just going to be a very, very high-end wide receiver 2 at the worst. With wide receiver 1 upside. So I totally understand that. Having said that, Shane, I just think that Tyson just has a different level of movement ability than he does, where he can truly route tree. It truly does. To me, if Tyson is completely 100% healthy, doesn't have any injury history or whatever, he is my wide receiver 1 in this class. I think he is my wide receiver 1. So I still would view him over Tate. He had a more productive season than that. He's a 99th percentile breakout age player. Like, typically those guys, it translates really well to the NFL. I'm a big fan of Mekhi Lemon's game as well. But considering that Tyson is pretty significantly larger as well, I don't think he's going to have any limitations. I think he's a better overall athlete in terms of just like pure fluidity in respect to his size than Lemon. I love those 3 receivers. Like, I think those are all, you can't go wrong with those 3 receivers in my mind. I do think that there's a bit of a tier gap after those guys, Shane. I know that we might not hold quite the same opinion on that, but I can't get over how good Jordan Tyson's tape is when he's healthy. The question is he's healthy? But Shane, go ahead and give us your dream round 1 scenario for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I think the dream scenario we touched on a little bit a minute ago, I think whether it's naturally there or whether you have to do a small trade up, that Mekhi Lemon gets in range to be the pick in the first round, whether that's a 21, not very likely, or if he falls far enough that you can realistically trade up for him without giving up the farm. Because ideally, you don't want to give up the farm if you don't have to. Now, they have the picks to kind of do that a little bit. But that just, to me, again, the seamless fit in terms of what this offense needs from the receiver position. Pure slot guy. Not that he can't play a little bit outside, but he would be absolutely the slot receiver for this offense. You could pepper him with targets. You could allow Pittman and Metcalf to slide into the roles they really should be in realistically, which maybe technically receiver 1 and 2 to start, but realistically by the time that the season rolls on and the targets start coming together, it's going to probably look a lot more like they're 2 and 3. That just would make a lot of sense for this offense. And if you're trying to capitalize on what might be a short window here with McCarthy and maybe Aaron Rodgers as quarterback, which I don't want to even really talk about, but it is what it is, that would be the way to maximize it.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. I am a big Lemon fan. I would be basically just as pleased with either one of those 2 guys in the first round. Now, I would say for sure, like if if I can stand pat and get Tyson at 21, I would certainly rather do that than trade up for Lemon and hold on to my third round pick, because I do think that Tyson has the most wide receiver one upside of any of the crop of this wide receiver group here. But I feel safer about Lemon for sure because he doesn't have the injury history stuff. All right, Shayne, let's get to a nightmare scenario here for this year. I want to outline one more though, real quick.
Okay, yeah.
One more dream scenario that I would have for Pittsburgh. It's not really on anybody's radar right now.
Okay.
Outside of those three receivers that we mentioned already, if the Steelers can organically stumble into getting Monroe Freeling in at pick 21, it's one. Not, again, it's we're not really talking left tackle in the first round right now, but did the Steelers cover their bases? Yes. Are they okay, at least at other positions for now? Yes. I think that left tackle is maybe a bigger concern than anybody's letting on right now. Broderick Jones had spinal fusion surgery, and he's entering the final year of his deal. I would be floored if the Steelers picked up his 5th-year option for the price that's going to be. This might be his last year anyway, and we don't even know if he's going to be healthy enough this season, and the Steelers may need a long-term left tackle after that. Guys like Monroe Freeling do not grow on trees. He's a 99th percentile athlete. He has prototype traits for the position. He scares me a little bit because of how raw he is in just one full year starting experience. The Steelers did that with another Georgia offensive tackle in 2023 with Broderick. But I think the traits are even better. I think the tape is even better and cleaner than Broderick's was. So if you can get maybe the best, like, pure pass protecting left tackle prospect in this class, sign me up for that at pick 21.
This is an interesting one because I thought you were going to go with Vega Ioane for a second as your dream scenario. Because
I just don't value guards heavily enough in the first round. Like, he's very good. He's I think a better overall prospect, but the tackle is just so much rarer position, more important to your football.
Oh, for sure. Like, I understand the positional value aspect of it. I just think Ioane is just a much better player than Freeling is. I don't disagree, now, especially. Yeah. And I understand it's different positions, but I think at this point with guard, like, not that they're at the same level as tackle, but these guys are getting paid a lot of money for good reason. Like, the NFL is trying to tell us, like, hey, these guys are important because when we don't have them, we can't play offense. And, like, I understand the same could be said about tackle, because if you can't protect your blind side of the quarterback, or you can't give them a pocket to be within, then you can't do anything. But if they can't step up into the pocket either, you're also kind of dead in the water. It's a collective thing. And obviously it's easier to find quality guards than it is quality tackles. So that's what influences the draft position of these guys. But, like, if you want to go as like 14 to the Ravens, I'm going to what I mean? Get like, no he's going to be good then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it sucks. So that's part of the problem.
And you called it. Like, he's a guy that if there's as close to a guarantee as it gets, like, really good interior offensive lineman, those guys hardly ever miss. Like, I think the hit rate is going to be really good.
Ridiculous when you draft them high. It's crazy.
Now, my argument, Shayne, would be that the fact that Steelers can find a South Dakota State jackrabbit in the 4th round, and he's already maybe a top 20, 25 guard in the NFL. Like, Mason McCormick is a really quality guard. I have no qualms with that. He's on a dirt cheap 4th round pick rookie contract. That's a heck of a savings right there. Like, in my mind, it's like you can stream these guys in a sense. Like, they streamed James Daniels for a few years, a really good player. They streamed Isaac Seumalo for a few years, really good player. They didn't have to give any draft capital think about it this way: between Daniels, Seumalo, and McCormick, you have one total 4th round pick and some free agent money invested in those guys. And I think it gave them some really quality guard play. Now, do I want the long-term guard to pair with Zach Frazier? Obviously, give me that guy. But I just think that guards are relatively easy to stream. And then even like Brock Hoffman for $2.5 million is a starting, I think at least a serviceable starting caliber guard, a really cheap deal. I just don't value the position enough. And so in my mind, Shayne, unless I'm getting like the Quentin Nelson prospect, I typically would just avoid guard in the 1st round altogether from a philosophical standpoint.
And again, I totally understand that, but it just gets to a point where, like, especially with how I feel about Ioane, where it's like he is just an absolute wall. Like, it's ridiculous, some of the stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there'd be times where he's playing against, like, legitimately Big Ten competition, and guys would get it into his chest and then just basically stay there for the whole rep. Like, nothing would happen for 4 seconds in a row. And it's like, that's not That's not normal. Like, that's not supposed to be how that works. So I get it. Like, at 21, I think the value would certainly be there, but I think that obviously, like, if someone else that was a more high level position who had a similar grade, I think especially then you have to go elsewhere. But
yeah, and on that note, one more thing about that, Shayne, is Vega, obviously a great football player. I would still be more apt to go Spencer Fanu there if he were.
Oh, if he was there, I mean, yeah, but that's because he can play anything.
Well, and that's the thing. Give me the guy that I can at least try at tackle first. Maybe I get Zach Tom or something out of him that way. And if he doesn't work there, I can play him anywhere on the offensive line, especially the interior. So I think there's a lot of value in that guy as well.
For sure.
Yeah, just our 2 cents. Let's go to our nightmare scenarios now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Shayne, I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but let's, for the sake of argument, give me another one in case it's Ty Simpson. And because I could argue that as well. Now, counterpoint, I don't want Simpson. To be clear, I do not want Simpson at 21. The last time the Steelers stood pat in the 20s and took a quarterback, it was obviously Kenny Pickett, and it worked out horrendously bad. And usually when you're taking a quarterback there and just let the guy that falls to you, if there weren't quarterback desperate teams early in the draft that wanted that guy, it probably tells you enough about that guy that you shouldn't gamble on him in that range. So now I don't usually fault teams for taking quarterback. At least you recognize that you need to find one. You got to fill that void. Ty Simpson, though, would be certainly up there as one of the biggest nightmares for the Steelers, because I do think, Shayne, I agree with you in terms of the upside. I think if he does hit, you're still looking at maybe like a mid-level starting quarterback. You're hoping to get, I don't know, Brock Purdy out of him. Like, what are you going to, I think his velocity is decent actually, but he just doesn't have the full package that you want.
That's the problem. People have tried, I've seen this multiple times. People have tried to say, okay, well, what if he's Brock Purdy? It's like, you don't take someone with Brock Purdy's profile in the first round. That's
to hope that he can be Brock.
That's why Brock Purdy didn't go in the first round, guys, because his profile doesn't hit usually. He went to the only place where it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to at least look like a starting caliber quarterback most of the time. And he ran with it, got better, has improved a ton as a player, and luckily for him and for the Niners, he's turned into a player that, even though I think is overpaid because I don't think he's a true franchise quarterback, he plays like one a lot of the time because of the situation he's in. You cannot assume that you're going to get Brock Purdy out of a Brock Purdy skill set more often than 1 out of probably 30 times. Like, that's just the reality of it. So if you actually think that's what he comps to, that means you shouldn't take him in the first round because his hit rate is not very high then. So that's I think it's funny you brought that up, because I think that's part of the problem with this.
I agree. I mean, that's you nailed it. If I'm to give you a non-Ty Simpson nightmare scenario for the Steelers in round 1, and again, I don't think that this is very likely. I think there's only really small percentage chance of this happening. If the Steelers are just kind of go off the wall here and take someone like CJ Allen in round 1, and it's like, okay, we just found our future linebacker. Now we can cut Patrick Queen and save $13.33 million. I'm good for getting rid of Queen. I have no ties to Queen. He wasn't good last year, but in the same breath, worse than guard. Like, I just don't value off-ball linebacker in the first round unless I am getting a Sonny Styles level of prospect. It doesn't have to be historic like that. No, just
but you have to be free,
better and maybe more well-rounded than CJ Allen. And I do feel like it's a position that you can absolutely find on day 2. And in fact, I would not be surprised at all if Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Galladay, if a few of these guys end up being maybe better than CJ Allen, just because they got a better athletic and size profile. And I just don't know what to make of it. I still feel like he's more in the mold of like Landon Roberts, Fitz Williams, with a little bit more coverage chops than that. Still a little bit stiff in the hips. I'm not taking that guy in the middle of the first round.
No, he's linebacker 5 for me. So he's not even in my second line. Like, especially if you count Reese and Styles, he would not be my second line. He'd be my 5th. And I think it's not that he's a bad player. I think he's just a very typical like day 2 linebacker you take, and he's probably going to be fine in 2 years. Like, that's the part of the problem with linebacker is, and I've actually had this discussion last night. I think I'm at a point where I might value linebackers in the first round less than I do running backs in the first round. Because I think in similar ways with running backs, the problem with running backs is that they don't last that long and they're relatively replaceable, right? That's obviously the whole point of it. So if you can get a special one, great. But if you can't, just take them not in the first round.
Yeah.
But at least with running backs, they're usually good right away. Like you draft them, and if they're good players, they're just good players right then. With linebackers, you might draft a guy in the second round, and he's bad for 3 of the 4 years that he's with you. The light comes on in his 4th year, and then some other team gets to get that good player in free agency because you don't want to pay that guy. That's what happens most of the time. So think about what the Steelers did with Patrick Queen. Now, they missed on it somehow, even though this is what you should do. The reason why the Ravens didn't pay Patrick Queen is because they know who Patrick Queen is. And they're like, we're not going to pay Patrick Queen. He's good because we had I can't even think of Roquan Smith next to him.
Yeah.
And the Steelers are like, well, we need a linebacker. He's already developed. Let's pay him. And then it turns out he's actually not good. But you get the point. Like, pay someone else's linebacker is what I'm trying to say. Like, that's what you should probably do most of the time.
I couldn't agree with you more on that topic right there, Shayne. It does take them a little bit of time. They go through growing pains.
Yep.
When you finally get them, they normally don't hit second contracts. Marcus Mosher, senior contributor for Fansided, put out a post recently on X that I believe it was only 4 off-ball linebackers that were drafted in the first round since 2009. Shayne, have earned second contracts with the team that drafted them.
I know.
They just don't. You're one contract and done. And then you find that these guys just really, most of them have not been worth paying after that. Even the ones who are considered better prospects, like Devin White, like these guys just, I mean, a lot of times they just either don't work out. It's a position that has a lot of injury risk involved because your body is so beat up, relatively short shelf life. Like there's so many reasons not to go with an off-ball linebacker in the first round unless you're getting a truly special prospect. Right. I don't think CJ Allen is that guy. Shayne, who is your nightmare scenario for the Steelers?
I've been thinking about this, and I think if you're looking at it from what is likely, like what could actually potentially happen, I think at this point, and it feels bad because I don't hate this player. I think it's Denzel Boston. Because
I get that.
Just because, and I want to say like nightmare is a little bit maybe pushing it, but he fits obviously some of the criteria that you want to look for to see who could be a potential pick. And now it's still early. A lot of other guys could fit that mold, and then he starts to go by the wayside. But he just isn't the type of receiver that this team currently needs with what they have right now. And 2, I just think the upside is lower with a guy like this. I think he's a good X receiver and a guy that you can maybe play in the slot a little bit as a big slot type, like not that dissimilar from Michael Pittman in a lot of ways. Which
really not. I mean, that was actually one of my comps for him before the Steelers even traded for Pittman.
Like he's not that dissimilar to him in a lot of ways. And also, I think he's a good enough route runner. Like I don't think he's Keon Coleman. Like that's a comp I've heard a lot. I think he's a better route runner and separates a little bit better than Coleman ever did at the college level. So I'm not worried about him being like a monumental bust, but I wonder if he's just like, I think the best you could ask him to be, and this would be awesome if it turned out this way, but like Cortland Sutton would be the best you could ask for. And as good as Sutton has been at times, like he still is like a fringe wide receiver 1 type at best. I just don't know if in a class that has so many different types of receivers, all of whom are more of like the explosive playmaking ones, that if any of those guys are on the board, except for Boston at that point, that I'd be okay with taking him, especially over those guys. But even if they're all gone, like just take a different position probably then and wait till the second round to address receivers. So,
Shayne, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's way more likely to happen than the Steelers doing something off the wall, like taking CJ Allen in the first round. There's going to be interest there. There already is. We just talked about the pre-draft interest tracker, 30 visit with Boston, met with him formally at the combine. I think that the front office and the coaching staff's probably fall in love with his personality. Like,
which I get.
He just answers every question right. You listen to him in his interviews and his combine interview. Not only that, he's big. He's got the family bloodlines. His dad was an NFL All-Pro, David Boston, and checks a lot of boxes that they look for. He had back-to-back productive seasons in terms of touchdown production, over 800 yards in 2 straight years. I can see that being the selection, but I am with you. This is what stings the most, I think, is probably taking my wide receiver 6
that's where
at pick 21.
Right, that's where I have him right now.
I don't feel good about that. I do not feel good ever about taking the 6th best player at a particular position, regardless of how valuable the position is. And I think that wide receiver is probably the 2nd most valuable position in football. I still don't feel good about taking the 6th best player at that position in there. Now, is that to say that he should not go in the first round? No, I think that I'm
No.
totally fine with him going. I think he should be a late first round pick, like pick 28 to 32. Like he should probably go in that range somewhere, not pick
For
21.
sure.
And we know that there's always receivers are an absolute premium. Everybody, you can't have enough good ones, but I don't think it's a great fit with the Steelers. And considering that he's my wide receiver 6, that would be real close to a nightmare for me as well, Shane.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to go with something a little bit more realistic because I think that could happen, right? Like I think it could. Now, again, if I was a team, like I'd run and draft him, like you said, late first, early second. Like I think if he makes it out of the first round, like the Jets at 33, right off the bat, would be a great way to kick off the second round for them and add someone like him to the receiving core if they don't do that at 16. Like it's just there's a lot of ways I could see that being a good pick for a team. I don't think it would necessarily be for the Steelers though.
I agree. Not my favorite pick either. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comment section below. Please leave us a comment, like this stream. If you like what you listened to today, please subscribe to the Steel Curtain podcast. Tell your friends about it. We will bring you content every single Wednesday. All right. Thank you for joining us on the show today. This show typically premieres on Wednesday evenings at 5 p.m. You can check out our other shows that we have currently on hold right now. We're going to get back to those soon. Thank you for joining us on the show today. You can follow Shayne on X at Shayne Kubas. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Steel Curtain podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also check us out on YouTube or ask Alexa to play the Steel Curtain Steelers podcast. And thanks again for listening to the Steel Curtain podcast.